Hey, Jimmy here. Just letting you know at the top of the episode, we spoil a couple things during our discussion. So if you haven't seen Glass Onion, we do spoil quite a bit of the plot of the movie. There's also the book, and Then There Were None. If you haven't read that one, we do spoil a lot of that. And last but not least, we do spoil Star Wars The Last Jedi. So just getting out of the way, if you do plan on reading or watching any of that kind of stuff, try and do it before listening to this episode. Thanks.
Welcome to Too Much Popcorn,
The podcast where Aaron and I review movies. Why would you listen to this podcast, you ask? As you're slowly don't don't stop listening. Hey, why would you listen to a podcast where two people, Aaron and I, that's myself, Jimmy and Aaron, review movies? Well, first of all, we like movies. You like movies? You're listening to this podcast. Second of all, sometimes you want to hear an external opinion about what some new movies, some old movies. So that's what we're here to do. We're here to talk about the movies. We're here for you to get an extra opinion and say, hey, should I watch this movie? Should I not watch this movie? What do Aaron and Jimmy think? And at the end of this episode, you'll know what we think of the movie.
We'll tell it to you straight. None of those rating systems of stars or numbers. Who can figure those out? We'll just give it to you just as is. Should you watch it? Should you not watch it?
Pretty simple, I would say. It's a 50-50 on whether you should watch it or not.
And then you know what? You don't even have to take our advice.
100%, especially in this era of streaming and a million services. Who knows if the title that you're even interested in is available on wherever you're trying to stream it in the first place. So here we go. Episode 1, Too Much Popcorn. What's the movie? It's the title of the episode.
That would be Glass Onion, the movie by Rian Johnson.
Glass Onion. Benoit Blanc. His second, well, far from his second murder mystery, but his second on-screen murder mystery. Yes. Aaron, what do you think of this movie? It's the second one. It's the second Knives Out. It gets a Knives Out title. It's a Knives Out mystery.
Yeah.
Glass Onion.
It's like, they could have called it Benoit Blanc Glass Onion, because it seems like there's a whole thing with him being the main character. But, it's not like they did Murder on the Orient Express, Death on the Nile. They just went with Death on the Nile.
True. A Poirot mystery. That's true. They didn't really do that. I agree. I think the problem with putting Benoit in your title is that there's a Benoit balls sort of connotation there.
Yes.
That I think Rian Johnson is well aware of. I think all of the writers involved with the project were probably aware of. And they said, hey, let's not put Benoit in the title of this movie. So I think that's probably where that came from. And they're like, oh, if we put Knives Out in it and put it out on Netflix, people will watch this movie, correct?
I think so. And I think, people will see the Knives Out and they'll be like, oh, Captain America movie. That's great.
Wait, what? Captain?
Yeah, because Chris Evans was in the first one.
Oh, he was in the first one.
Yeah.
Do you think people thought Chris Evans was going to be in Glass Onion? Just as sort of like a...
Not only that, I just think that most people assume that he is Captain America. I don't think that at this point there is a Chris Evans anymore.
He is just Buzz Lightyear Captain America.
Yes.
Because he's also Buzz Lightyear.
Yeah.
Just so you know. I haven't seen that movie, but...
We'll get to that one someday.
I figure it's probably just like a Captain America movie. So it was scene one, seen them all. So he gets real big, he gets real jacked, and then he goes and he fights Nazis. Like, that's pretty good. It's a good movie. Space Nazis if he's Lightyear. So
and does any of that happen in this movie? No. But
absolutely.
You know what? It had other things like a murder and then a mystery.
Yes. I know. I feel like we're splitting hairs over the title here, but to be honest, I think they could have just called it Glass Onion, and it's marketed as Glass Onion.
Yeah, I've seen
but
plenty
it's definitely
of stuff.
it's like heavy colon a Knives Out mystery, and I think it's funny that they're just like, we really have to connect this to Knives Out. It's the same guy, Benoit Blanc.
Well,
Don't forget.
I think beyond that, I think if they had gone with just Glass Onion and, you know, kind of relied on the fact that like it's Ryan Johnson, I think people would have, you know, assumed, yes, it's going to be a murder mystery, but it probably won't be as complicated and convoluted as the first one.
I see.
At least I feel that's really where the charm of the first one is it's not like other murder mysteries where it's, you know, one specific whodunit. You know, there's all these complicated workings behind the scenes.
I agree. I think that's super important. The whole crux, again, I haven't seen Knives Out since it came out, so it's been a while. But I feel like the main thing in Knives Out is you're like rooting for the person who thinks they have done the murder, right? So you have that sort of layer of Ana de Armas. You're like, oh, I hope she gets away with this so that she can help her family and like become rich via this guy who really liked her company, and you know, she was a good nurse, all that stuff. And so you're already like at that layer in Knives Out, and you're like, okay, so what's the layer in Glass Onion? And he puts layers in the title of the onion.
Yeah,
like Shrek.
Just like Shrek.
Just like Shrek. Yeah. So I think I totally agree with you there. There is a connotation with Knives Out of being a Ryan Johnson mystery, right? And if it didn't have Knives Out in it, maybe they would have not had Daniel Craig even as the main sort of mystery solver, right? There may have been no connecting thread to Knives Out at all. It would have just been a totally new cast besides Daniel Craig, you know? I mean,
possibly, but I think they got a lot of charm and, you know, marketability from that character where they're like, you know, here's his thing, here's his quirks, here's the things that make him unique, and here's going to be one draw to this movie is that you want to see more of him interacting with other people in a different environment.
That makes sense. And also, he's not James Bond anymore. So they're like, well, Daniel, what are you doing if not reprising your role as Benoit Blanc, the beloved?
You clearly need some money, Daniel Craig. And he's like, you're right. I am going bankrupt daily.
He is. He's in so many ads. He's in some fancy ads now. He's really scraping the bottom of the barrel there. Daniel, you're doing okay?
You can come on our podcast. We'll pay you.
We'll pay you to come on the podcast. You'll get a little something in that wallet of yours. We know you're hurting. After that Netflix release, although it was released in theaters, which is cool for a Netflix movie.
That is cool. I didn't know
here's
that.
an exclusive theater release if you want to see Glass Onion in the theaters. And again, I think movies should be seen in theaters when it's safe to do so. I think it's been too long since I've seen a movie in a theater, and I want to be blasted out of my seat by the sounds and the sights and the lights and just burning my retinas on giant screens. I think that's a huge part of the experience, which, to bring it back, the title of our podcast, Too Much Popcorn, stems from a visit to the movie theater once where Aaron and I ate way too much popcorn. We were so engrossed in a film. I think we each had whatever the extra large biggest bucket of popcorn was. And we ate it all separately, each of us sharing possibly to help each other. And we were both sick at the end of that movie, and we felt very bad, possibly for 2 to 3 days afterwards. But that is the sort of stem of where the podcast come from. If you wanted to know, a little sneak peek there.
We're kind of parting the curtains. You just saw the silver screen. That's what this is.
It's like there was a curtain in front of the screen, and we peeked out from behind it, and we're like, hey, what's this curtain doing here? There's a movie screen that needs to be shown.
And the little attendant, he's up in the stands, and he's like got his flashlight. He's like, what are you guys doing behind there?
And we're like, we're presenting our podcast. Come on, guy, Glass Onion.
Yeah.
Get it up here, the digital projector. What's going on? Yeah. Wow.
And you know what? Speaking of movie theaters and speaking of this being a movie theater release, I would say that, this is definitely something I would want to see in the movie theater. Like, it was an absolutely beautiful movie.
Oh,
like, the location of them going to Greece and being on this just bonkers mansion like island.
Yes. The island that is a mansion.
Yeah. And the colors, the lighting, it was absolutely beautiful. I think seeing all that on the big screen would be just a good time.
Definitely. I think a big part of the draw of whodunits or mystery movies a lot of the time to see them in the theater is you get a bigger picture of clues of stuff that you're supposed to see, because like a whodunit, like Death on the Nile, like any of these sort of things, there's gonna be clues. The director or filmographer or cinematographer, somebody's gonna hide stuff in the frame that if you pick up on it the first time, you feel like a genius. You feel like Benoit Blanc yourself. You feel like you've solved the mystery. And then if you're seeing it at home on a smaller screen, computer or TV or otherwise, it's like you definitely will miss out on some of that detail that like could be theoretically as big as your head or whole body on a, movie screen.
Yeah.
Which would be crazy.
And, I could see that totally being a thing for this movie because it had so many Easter eggs where you're like, there's no way that this one tiny thing is going to absolutely come back later. And then it does. And it
100%.
That was, I think, one of the things I really got a kick out of in this movie was just the fact that literally everything was Chekhov's gun. It was like, they were like, here's this pebble at the very beginning of the movie. And you're like, oh.
Yes. Every line of dialogue, every set piece, every, item located in the film beforehand plays back into the sort of finale in some way. And I truly, truly appreciated that when you're like, oh, well, there's a red piece of paper there. There's there's something crystal that shouldn't have been crystal. There's something, glasses, drinks, somebody saying fruits, it's those sort of details where you're just watching a movie. You don't expect to miss stuff. And then you're like, oh, I actively just was not paying attention at that point, I guess. Because then I think geniusly, there's a replay generally. If you're given a clue, you're given like the replay or the different perspective or like a different shot entirely that plays into how the mystery actually played out or what somebody actually said. And I think that was truly entrancing to me when you would see a shot from a different angle, because you're seeing two people sort of investigate this crime that is actively occurring or has occurred. And that's the part that truly, truly blew my mind. Is I think specifically, I'm talking about the scene where there's the two people talking in the pool.
Yeah.
You have like Catherine Hahn and Leslie Odom Jr. And you see, you're following Benoit Blanc. He's the guy, he's the one who's not supposed to be there. You're following him the first half of the movie, and suddenly at the switch, you're hearing a different conversation that he was actively like looking at. They're in the shot while he's like in the pool, and you're like, hey, they're over there. Benoit, what's going are you missing clues? What's going on? But the whole time is like, he set it up to he was taking care of it, Yeah. It's good.
Well, and I think that's one of the things that I like about when Johnson makes these movies is typically like what you'll see in murder mysteries is, they'll present something that really does become that Chekhov's gun. And they do something to like, physically change the camera for that one particular scene. And they're when they're all sitting in the pergola and he holds up the magazine with Birdie on it, another director would have zoomed up on that or put something different to like emphasize that magazine. But, Johnson's just like, no, the magazine's in the scene, but it is something you'll need later. And that's something I enjoy, because then it's like, either those are the things that you are picking up on or you're not. And then you either, you kind of feel smart in the end and you're like, oh, yeah, I did notice that.
He said pineapple.
Yeah. Or like when Dave Bautista's character dies and Edward Norton backs away from him, you can see Bautista's phone in Norton's pocket. Which is like genius, because of course he would have it on him, and that's not something you can change later. As kind of evidence too when he hands the cup to Batista, and like that
Right.
one scene you can clearly see he hands it to him, and then when they do
Yes.
that replay, it is only for the subversion of the fact that you saw him hand
Yes.
it to
I
him.
I was again I was constantly blown away by my inattention to detail in terms of like didn't see the phone, didn't see him fully hand him the drink. And so I'm like on a second watch, the mystery is ruined, but I would love to actually have picked up on those things and not be tricked by the false shots that they do again, where you're like, oh, well, here's his testimony and he's saying this. It's a lie. He's just straight up lying, but the movie is showing you his lie. And you're like, well, that is kind of what I saw, right? And so it's just like, how much are you paying attention? And apparently me, not too much. Not a whole lot.
But I mean, it's good, and that's one of those things that's good about this type of movie is that that's what makes the rewatch better is when you can go back through and see these things and notice things, and then you're not
feel like
just
a genius.
Yeah, you're like, oh yeah, I saw it that time. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's good, and I think it's also I'm trying to tie it into the other mystery, the mystery within the mystery of this movie, which is the original whodunit, where he calls everybody there and he's like, who's gonna solve my murder?
Yes, genius. That is when the movie for me started. Is when fully Benoit, he gets up, he solves the mystery in 3 seconds, and he's like, this was good. Like, that's a good writer. Whoever wrote this mystery, so good. Like, thank you so much. I really needed this. And I was like, oh, the movie's starting.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then he plays it in this amazing way that it felt like sort of the finale of the original Knives Out, where he's stating all the facts and then solving the mystery, and then that's how it ends, right? And in this one, it's not a real mystery. He solves it, and then it happens in exactly the same way that he described it. Like that was the epitome of what you're thinking of when you're thinking of like the perfect detective. Like they've already solved the mystery. They're looking for the next one, and he gets exactly what he wanted. True, but he was already on the island for that reason in the first place. So
yeah,
I like that a lot.
I think one of the other things that was really good about that whole, dinner scene, and specifically that like specific murder mystery, I could be wrong here. I could have done the littlest bit of research into this, as in going to Google and Googling this, but I'm pretty sure that is an Agatha Christie, like into one of her novels, is that the killer had a crossbow set up that then hit the host. And so
I see. And then there were none mystery ends up being everybody's called to an island, and then the owner of the island who brought everybody there kills themselves in their sleep, and so they're dead. They're like the third victim. And so they're eliminated from the pool of suspects because everyone's like, oh, well, they died. And then they all go insane trying to figure out who's, killing them off. But he's already dead. So it had that vibe where you're like, oh, some eccentric person set this up to kill themselves, right? And so that sort of Agatha Christie nod definitely throughout Knives Out, throughout Glass Onion. You're just like, Rian Johnson really likes Agatha Christie, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, but we do have to talk about because I feel like I've just been ranting, praising this movie. I had an issue with probably the first hour.
Yeah.
So, and what's annoying to me is I'm okay with it because it makes me mad, but I'm okay with it because they're like, here's COVID, right? It's 2020. These people are experiencing this thing that the world experienced, and we're going to show it in a film, and people are masking and social distancing or not in a lot of cases. And then they get to Greece, they get to the pier, and Ethan Hawke shows up and shoots them all with the magic gun that solves COVID, right? And you're like, okay, sure, rich people had a magic gun in 2020 that solved, fixed COVID. You could not get it, whatever. B, why have any of that in the first place if you're just gonna throw it? Like literally shoot it away, like down their throats. It felt like it was being shoved down my throat. I'm like, I lived through it. I don't want to see it more.
It is
Why show it for an hour? Have Ethan Hawke show up and make it go away? I just don't like it. I did not like it.
It is kind of funny when you think about it, where it's like in movies you can have subversion of reality and you can put yourself in these fanciful little worlds, but it's like, hey, remember COVID happened and now you have to relive that, and it happened.
I didn't want to remember.
And you know what? Like, you could easily still have that movie set in 2020 and like just have totally glossed over that. Because magical things can happen in movies. If you can have a little green guy hold out his hand and lift an X-Wing out of a swamp, you could have anything happen. It's like in the same vein.
I love E.T.
I love E.T. It's like the same thing where Han Solo puts on his headphones in the Millennium Falcon and they have a cord. And it's like, no, this is a magical fantasy world. You don't have to have a cord in your headphones.
Hey, he had the cord though. That was plugged in.
That's details.
That shit was
so is a mask. I don't know. No, I feel you. And I think more than that, I do feel that, I don't know if it's how their like shooting schedule went or what, but with like the whole first hour of the movie, it really was slow in a way that wasn't character building.
No.
And it wasn't setting up everything.
It was character building in that it introduced the characters. And then when they show up on the dock, they're either wearing masks, they're not wearing masks, they're wearing chainmail, like useless masks that are just for fashion or whatever. And so it's like you're learning about people based on how they're treating this pandemic, but I really just didn't want it. I really didn't, and it set me off for the first 45 minutes to an hour, just the wrong foot. So as soon as I get to the island, I'm fine, but
yeah, I'm also going to put this out in the ether too, and it's in the same vein, where the whole one person talking to a monitor of other people via Zoom or whatever, I don't care what movie it is, it sucks ass. I hate watching it. Put them in the same
room or kill me, because I can't stand it.
And if you want to tell me that we don't have the technology nowadays to green screen in other people into a room who are 6 feet away or what, you cannot sell me that bill of sale, buddy.
Put them in a really big room.
Do it.
There's big tables. There's big rooms. Take off the roof.
I can specifically think of a movie. It is called The Kingdom. They do a debrief scene at the very end where it's people in a big room, and I bet they're at least 6 feet apart. It's not a 2020 movie. It's from like 2008. And you know what? That is so much more visually pleasing to watch than somebody watching Zoom. I
absolutely, I think that's part of the issue is I tune out when I'm seeing someone talk to 4 to 6 different other people. I'm like, none of what any of these people can matter to me because this is work. You've put too many faces on here and they all have the same agency and, character, like nobody's building character here. I don't care who any of the people on the screens are. I don't care who we're finally like interacting with outside in the real world. Leslie Odom Jr., bless his heart, I don't know. He was alone in the labs talking to 6 different people, and that scene meant nothing to me.
Yeah.
If I was supposed to learn clues or anything from that, I'm sorry, I didn't learn any clues from them solving the puzzle. My clue was that they got the puzzle.
Yeah.
And they solved the puzzle and they got an invite. That's all I got. Any other little, like, oh, she was at a party and they're all in her pod, like, I wasn't listening to the dialogue. I was very interested in the little puzzles and finding out which people solved what puzzle. That was it.
Yeah.
Everything else, nonsense.
Yeah. You put Shinji's dad in front of blacked out characters on monitors, maybe I'll pay attention. But we all know the reality that, yes, we had to wear masks. Yes, we had to Zoom. That is what that is, and I get that. And yes, we had to keep people safe. I'm not debating that.
No.
All.
It's not the reality of COVID. It's just that it's boring.
Yeah.
It's boring.
I am just saying that we need, as humans, face-to-face interaction. Nobody is going to deny that. We need it. It's why we go to work. It's why we see people. It's why we interact with our friends. We need the human interaction, and movies are based off of that, where when you have two people talking to each other in a movie, you can put yourself there and you can feel that. But when you have somebody on a screen talking to another screen, it is so uninteresting, it is so boring, and it is frankly lazy movie making, where I think they figured out that not only does it work to fill time, but yeah, it's going to save us a lot of money. And if it continues past 20, I'm going to give it 2023, because I'm giving that like,
it's
maybe
this year.
Yeah.
It's this year. You're done.
There are, the end results of people making movies during 2020. I get that. So
right.
If I watch a movie in 2024, if I go see Avatar 3 and Jake Sully pulls up a monitor and starts fucking zooming with other Na'vi,
I bought Christoph Waltz into the movie. Here he is. He's on my personal data pad.
Yeah.
Please talk to Christoph Waltz. Yeah, I think it's funny that you bring up Shinji. Any like sci-fi movie where it's in fiction, like they're talking to him from Mars or something like that, right? Or it's like a shadowy organization. That is a plot point that they are using sort of to obfuscate who they're talking to, or like they have to use this thing. And it's like, yes, COVID, you had to use it, but we don't have to anymore. And you definitely don't have to in movies, people.
Yeah.
You definitely don't have to.
Or
just stop doing it.
Like maybe it's even like, the mystery of like the mystery. Ooh, we're back on mysteries of who are these people? Or even like, oh yeah, I'd like to be talking to a shadowy cohort of people who I don't know. But then, on the other hand, you have the reality of I have sat through so many Zoom meetings via the past 2 years, and I am so done with it.
Yes.
Yeah. Oof.
Yes. And it hurts me to bring it up because I do genuinely enjoy this movie, but that first 45 to an hour was so COVID heavy and so like, I got to do it for my constituents. I got to blah, 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 blah. All this sort of stuff that was just the weirdest. And then to fully erase it with a gun.
Yeah.
From Ethan Hawke.
Yeah. Like you could have just started the movie out in the fanciful world of 2022 where some wacko made a, vaccine and handed it out to everyone in the world. Yeah. And you know what I would have said in the movie? Oh, cool.
I would have said, perfect. Thank you, Ethan Hawke, you crazy man. Thank you so much for giving us this vaccine and shooting it into our mouths.
But, maybe the next time I watch Terminator and they're like, the far off world of 2010, and then there's a nuke going off, I'll be like, nope, didn't happen. This is so fake. Blah, blah, blah.
It'll just shatter my reality. I'll say, hey, that didn't happen.
Yeah.
Both of the coasts are still very much not barren wastelands yet.
So you know what, Ryan Johnson, you just destroyed Terminator for me. Wow.
Next time I watch Titanic, I'm going to go say, that's impossible. It's impossible for the boat to sink like that.
Yeah.
Wait, it did? Yeah. So yeah, that the thing is, I'm still mad about it. But for it to culminate to rich people have a cure now, like, in this reality of 2020, rich people have a cure. That's the point of that, the whole first 45 minutes.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
Yeah.
And I already don't like rich people. Sorry, rich people. Any rich people listening?
I like them. But, I like them. Hey, please watch and sponsor us.
I don't like you, but I love you. See, I got him back. No, that's the thing is like, I don't like that. That's the point. I get it. I already get it. I live it. I didn't need it from Ethan Hawke. I'm sorry. Get on your fancy boat and take care of the rest of the movie. Cause I just didn't like it.
It's a played out joke. They walk past the vial. Oh, what's that? Oh, it's the cure to cancer. Like, we get it. Just build a movie where you put me in a reality where COVID never happened. Please.
I will believe it. I believed it in all the movies that were like not acknowledging it,
Yeah.
It's fine. They're not saying it didn't exist. They're just not acknowledging it. And that's all I needed. I acknowledge it every day. And I don't want to anymore. But yes, that brings us to, I think, a good point where we could hear from our sponsors, don't you think? Our many, many sponsors.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Welcome back from the break. This is, of course, the Janelle Monáe podcast. As you were listening to before, not that other podcast. It is entirely about her and her part in...
Fancast.
Yes, and entirely about her part in the role of that character in the Glass Onion movie.
2 characters even.
Oh, 2 characters even. True.
Twin sisters.
And if you did not know that, that is the reveal that happens partway through the movie.
Haha. What a good scene. And to leave us on a cliffhanger of thinking she's dead for maybe like half an hour.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And then like having that little reveal that, yeah, she's still alive, which, you know, a little bit of a faux pas that like, yes, everybody does that. And everybody does the cliche, pull the book out and there's a bullet in there. I'll give it a pass, especially because they followed it by having Benoit be genius and pull out the hot sauce.
The hot sauce.
And have it pretend it's blood. That got me pretty good.
I loved that. And then the like nerve-wracking scene where everyone's still there and it's like dripping into her eye and you're like, oh no.
Yeah.
This is awful.
I know. Having been pepper sprayed, I was like, oh, I can relate to that. It's horrible.
Yeah. And she was like, and it went up her nose.
Yeah.
That's the worst part. Oh, hurts me just kind of thinking about it. And she was just shot.
Yeah.
What was in her pocket that saved her?
It was the little book. It was the book of secrets that she was...
notes?
Yeah, she was doing the Clue-esque notes throughout.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think that's the best part to me is that type of reveal. Specifically, that reveal is you get all of the backstory of her, you know, going to Blanc's apartment and bringing him in on the mystery, and she has the fucking broken ass box and stuff. And at that moment, you learn that he lied, right?
Oh, yeah.
To Edward Norton's character and is saying, I solved all the childless puzzles and, you know, did all this stuff as like a dig to him fully, just to his face, because he did not solve the puzzles. He knew there were puzzles, but he was like, oh no, they're childish, easily, 4 minutes, whatever. And just like, ooh, what a burn to have not even done it and received the box pre-destroyed. Very good. I really liked that, because then it brings it back to the you know, final catching of the villain, with Benoit just being very angry at stupidity.
Yeah.
When she's like making the clue list and he's like, I just don't like Clue because it's dumb. And I'm
so
like,
simple.
And I'm like, I could see Clue as your job would be annoying. Just fully a very annoying thing to do. And the fact that I don't have that, I can enjoy Clue. And also, there's an upgraded edition. There's more rooms, more people, more weapons.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
There's more checkboxes, infinite possibilities, or a certain set amount. But that's not the point. Yeah. I think it's sort of an exploration, a further exploration of Daniel Craig's character in this film made me like him so much more, because he was already in Knives Out, one of my favorite characters to exist in film, in anything ever. He is Benoit Blanc to me, and not even Benoit Blanc, Daniel Craig doing that accent. He could do that accent as any character in any movie, and I would love it.
Oh, yeah.
I don't even know. He wouldn't have to be a mystery man. He could be anybody. He could be dumb as a box of rocks. And if he's doing that accent, I'd love him. 100%. Full on. So the fact that we, you know, from Knives Out, we had him. We know he was this intellectual solving these mysteries. He's very smart. He has all this, not as much depth, though. In this one, I appreciated that we got a depth to Benoit with him being so coy and funny and just so likable. And, you know, he's smoking the cigar or whatever on the beach at the end, and he's like, disruption. And you're just, perfect character. Possibly Daniel Craig's best character ever so far, in my opinion.
Yeah.
James Bond, great guy. Logan Lucky, goofy guy. You know, all this kind of stuff. Daniel Craig's a great guy. Benoit Blanc is the best Daniel Craig role for me. Period.
Yeah.
He's my favorite. He's my favorite guy. Also, he's so stylish in this film. They set whoever did the costuming for Daniel Craig and everyone in this film, but the styles in this film are so, and it brings it back to just a joy to look at this film.
Yeah.
From the sets to the costuming to the design of everything, it feels so minute in detail in terms of how far they went down to assist you in this mystery solving. I very much appreciate that.
Yeah, no, I heard this one thing where Rian Johnson said that he wanted everybody to look like a different character, a la Clue, where everybody has like a specific look. And I was like, that makes sense. You got the one lady who's in beige. You got the one lady who's the fashion designer. You got Dave Bautista, who's Dave Bautista. And let me tell you, yes, his character, problematic and all that, but he was wearing some outfits that I was like, I would not mind having that.
He had the fits. It's
Dude,
not fair.
The shirts that were like Randy Savage-esque, I was like,
yes,
I might want to get me some of those.
It was very return to wrestler for him in the terms of if wrestlers shot people for a living.
And I dig it because like he's been playing a lot of characters where it's like, it's possible that this is a wrestler who's become this guy, via Dave Bautista. But I just like it where it's like, no, this is just a guy who's still in a way a wrestler, and he's got that like panache. It's very good.
Just to have him be the literal streamer living in his mom's garage was such a fun character choice. And the introduction to him is just like, take the red pill, boobies. And you're just like, Dave, what are you doing? I love it. Keep it up, bro. I mean, this is awful. I'm sorry they did this to you, Dave, but you're killing it. You're absolutely nailing it. So funny.
Put him in more movies.
He's in them. He's actively being put in them.
Yeah, more of them though.
More?
Yeah.
He's just one man.
Put him in more.
Schedule coming up. He's in this many movies. Yeah. He was a great character. That's the thing. I think all of them were very, yes, Clue-esque in their archetypal sort of, you could put them in this certain way. You're like literal politician, scientist, right-wing streamer, the easy to define boxes. Everybody knows.
Yeah. You walk down the street, everybody is at least one of those 4 types.
There's only 4.
There's only 4.
Or megalomaniac rich person.
Yeah. Yes, Edward Norton, just brilliant.
Yes.
God, put him in more movies too. I love Edward Norton.
I especially loved him in this movie. I think he plays like a haughty, just like asshole so well.
Oh yeah.
And it's a role I feel like he's played before.
I've been trying to think what I remember
sort of Fight
him.
Clubby. He's very confrontational,
verbose
in this film. Yeah, he's he is verbose in the in the way that is the tip off to him just being an idiot. But and that's the one thing I got. Whenever he said a bullshit word, I was like, abbreviate? Excuse me? Like none of that hit with me because I was like, but it did hit in the same way where it's like, oh, eccentric rich assholes create words.
Yes.
And to sound smart or to fit in some way. And so that didn't tip me off that he was just actually an idiot. It just tipped me off that he was true to his character and that he was a rich asshole. So
Yeah. I'm sorry. Here's a hot take. It happens. They do it. They make up words to sound like they're making up words, and it's awful.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So it's a good clue in that film to have him do it because it is sort of a MacGuffin-y sort of throw you off where you're like, well, shit, is he actually an idiot or does he just make up words like a real rich asshole? You're like, dang, it's too good. He's too real. He's too deep into it. Good writing. I think that fully shows, at least to me, I was, all of the dialogue in the film I was very engrossed with, except the first 45 minutes, of course.
Yes.
Anything on a Zoom cord. I think there's so many witty retorts and just, I think the great example that's just such a quick scene is Dave Bautista's character has died, and his girlfriend is going back to their room to, I don't know, she's looking for something. I can't remember exactly. But that's when Janelle Monáe's character is, trashing the rooms. And they're talking about how Dave Bautista is an asshole. But the girlfriend is talking about how Dave Bautista has died. And Janelle Monáe is talking about how he deserves, not getting the job or all this sort of stuff. And then the girlfriend is like, you killed him. You're saying he deserved to die?
Yeah.
I'm going to kill you with a harpoon gun. I thought that was an amazing, it's such a quick, like quippy little exchange between those two. And it's in that sort of flashback where you're like, well, I know where this is going, but to have that sort of extra context of like where the girlfriend was getting like, she killed him. She killed him. It's like, oh, that's why you thought, because she just dislikes him very much, rightfully so. So yeah, it's, and that to me solidifies it as that sort of Knives Out style, is the characters all are these very verbose. They just are saying so many words, and just like in the first film, is you'll miss a whole conversation between people because it's all happening so fast, and there's always like 6 people on screen.
Mm-hmm.
And just like in the first film, where you're like missing one of the great Benoit lines or something, where it's like the little Nazi kids jacking off in the background, like that shit goes under the radar if you're just sort of actively trying to get clues or whatever. But there's all this really, really quippy, hilarious dialogue that I just very deeply enjoyed. And, lighthouse scene, lights go out with the light being the only light source in there.
Yeah.
I think that I chills throughout that whole sequence. I thought amazing way to just add that sort of ambiance to sort of a horror, very like intense sequence. So good.
Yeah. That was a really good way to, do that expectation subversion where you're like, all right, the lights are going out. Someone's going to hunt Edward Norton, not the other way around.
Yeah. And everybody's running around panicked as if they are being hunted, but
or
really
hunting.
Exactly. Yeah. It's really, I think, again, it's another thing that I enjoy Rian Johnson, how he shoots films, how he plans out shots, stuff like that, where depending on what angle someone is running at the camera or running away from the camera, you're already interpreting what their action is, right?
Yeah.
And so you're seeing Edward Norton run away down a hall, and he's running at the camera at one point, and he turns around, and you're like, oh, weird. But then like Janelle Monáe's character is behind a wall, and you're like, whoa, and you only see her for like a split second, and you're like, well, is she gonna kill him? Is he? And you're like, who is searching for who? Is very chaotic energy that I deeply enjoyed in that sequence. I absolutely loved that.
Yeah, very, very good.
Yeah. What was your favorite part though? What was your fully favorite part of the film?
Yes, Jimmy, thank you for asking me that wonderful, fantastic question. This is not me just vamping for time. This is obviously me coming up with the answer and a brilliant way to just intro into that answer, which is that I actually don't really have a favorite part of the movie. Like, yeah, there's great parts where there's obviously the reveal at the end where, like, every great mystery, you have Poirot in the, drawing room with everybody on the car, and he has the reveal, and you're like, yeah. Or that part where the crocodiles were eating the guy in Death on the Nile. But
that happened so much, I lost count.
There were so many crocodiles. But there were great parts in this movie too. One of the scenes that made me laugh really hard that sticks in my mind is this is not a smoking garden. I think it was just mainly because I saw him light up the cigar and I was like, there's gonna be dumbass alarms that go off and say that you can't smoke on the island. And then it happened and I was like, yeah.
And the little ad where he throws it into the water and it's like, please don't.
Yeah, please keep our waters clean. Yeah. Yeah. Very good.
Very much enjoyed that.
Yes. So, there were a lot of good scenes, but there was nothing that actually stood out as my favorite scene.
I understand. That makes sense. I feel like there is something to taking in a film as its whole.
I want to talk on that more, where it's not that I liked it all equally, it's that there wasn't anything like absolutely spectacular that like there was no particular shot that stood out to me where I was like, yo, okay.
I understand.
So for example, do you remember in Death in the Nile when they're doing that one shot where they're talking in the room and they're zooming around and it goes through the glass, and we were just so boggled at that scene.
We were like, the cinema!
The cinema is real, and oh my goodness, he's done it.
The power of film! Yes, I do remember that.
Yeah, that stood out to me. Or again, the crocodiles stood out to me. So
the many, many crocodile deaths. Yes.
Yeah, it wasn't that there was anything in this movie that like absolutely stunned me.
Gotcha.
Or like, you know, made me chuckle, made me like bust a seam. It was just that it was just like I wasn't enjoying everything. There was just nothing to enjoy more than all the other things.
I understand.
And you might be sitting there thinking, well, Aaron, that just sounds like you enjoyed everything all the same level. No, I just spent that whole time explaining that it's not the same.
I think the fact that you have an example directly from Death on the Nile that I remember as vividly is, you know, the fact there where you're like, look, that shot alone made the film. The rest of the film is fine, but that shot felt revolutionary. Felt like a new thing had happened, like I'd never seen before.
Like if we're putting in perspective, you know, that shot and then the twist where Book gets shot, like that makes that movie an absolute recommendation for me. I would 100%, and I'm probably gonna ruin that episode.
Changing the title of the podcast episode.
I know. When we get to Death on the Nile, and I don't mention any of these things, I'm gonna have ruined that episode. But just having something to compare this one to is
I think it's sort of interesting because I think Rian Johnson does have the capability of doing those sorts of shots, like in Last Jedi, the one where the ship goes through the big ship.
Yep.
That shot rules.
Yeah.
So much.
Yes.
And the rest of the movie does not matter besides that shot.
Yeah.
Just in general.
You know, I'd like to talk more on that too, because
we could do an episode on it. I'm telling you.
No,
this is the Glass Onion episode.
All movies in this Rian Johnson podcast. No. And you know what? Hot take alert. But all you nerds out there, The Last Jedi is actually a pretty good movie. And
they're not going to listen
me
to the Glass Onion episode.
You know what? I hope they do. And I hope they clip this specific episode and play it at my trial where they're like, he said The Last Jedi is a good movie. I'll say it is. Because you have that scene where he used lighting and visuals and sound design. And not only that, there are other specific movies. The whole fight on Crate. Was it Hoth? Yes. Was it beautiful? Absolutely. Okay. I'm getting too into The Last Jedi. And I will
Is that the one where it's the white salts, but then the red underneath?
The red underneath.
God. Oh, the visuals.
I know.
Oh.
And then, you know what? I'm just going to say it because it's a good scene. The one where you have the entire First Order after the not the rebels, but I'm just going to say it because I can't remember what they're called. The rebels.
Yeah. Newest rebels. Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, they're far out above. And you have the First Order just launching, rounds at them. It is beautiful and just... It is a good scene, and it's
I think that's that when they're on that planet, all of those sequences are just so good.
Yeah.
There's shots, multiple, like the door is closing, great shot. All of the fucking AT-ATs are setting up, amazing shot. Luke comes out, it's just him against a giant cliff, and all of them are opposed of him. Great shot. There's so many sequences in just that planet alone that you're like, this is amazing.
Yeah.
This is truly incredible.
It is. It's a good movie.
Yes. But that's the thing is we know Rian Johnson can do that mind-blowingly beautiful shit that you love to see. And it's not that this movie isn't beautiful. I think any of the shots that were just essentially drone shots or whatever of the mansion, of the onion itself, of it exploding, what have you, beautiful shots.
Yeah.
It's amazing to look at.
It's literally almost ironic that you have the entire beauty of Greece. You have the beauty of this mansion. You have a room filled with glass sculpture that is decadent and beautiful. Yes. You have the Mona Lisa there. You have Dave Bautista there. And I'm still like, there is not one scene in this movie that was just like, boom, that's it. This is going to stay with me.
Do you think maybe there's a point to that? I think you would want Ryan Johnson thinking to himself, oh, I'm going to do the shot that blows their minds. Or do I not do the shot and instead blow it up and burn it all down? Because, okay, to be fair, when she takes the crystal and throws it into the fire and it sucks up into the ventilation system and it's all sort of whoopy and sort of cool and flames, that part kind of did do it for me a little bit.
Yeah.
It was in the same vein of a Star Wars movie, though, where you're like, weird, this is so sci-fi, hydrogen, weird.
No, I mean, I can respect that, and I'm not going to say that, you shouldn't enjoy that scene, but
No, and I'm not saying that's like my favorite scene, but I am thinking like back to something that did sort of change my reality in that moment. I said, oh, she does a really cool thing that totally destroys the rest of the building. Like, amazing. And I think there is something to her, Janelle Monáe, in this film being flawless, like perfect. Oof. All of her actions, all of her lines, just so good. Yeah. When she comes back down the stairs and reveals that she is not dead, and people are either confused that she is, the person they thought was they either knew was dead or didn't know was dead or didn't know she had a twin. That reveal is amazing. She then destroys all the glass sculptures, and that whole sequence is good. And the building of sort of the camaraderie between her and these other people, these disruptors who end up hating Edward Norton anyways. It's like, you can feel that, and she gives you that. But it's not really the movie. It's just her. It's just Janelle Monáe being amazing.
Yeah.
For me.
Yeah, I stand by that. I get by. I get behind that.
That's kind of all I'm saying. So, with all that being said, Aaron, would you what would you say? Would you watch, or would you recommend people watch this movie or not watch this movie? I'm just gonna flat out ask you right now.
I would go with it being a watch. Okay.
And for me, it's a watch because I think you should see it. If you haven't seen it yet, I'm sorry we spoiled everything, but from Aaron and I, that's a double watch. We both recommend you to watch this.
You just got a double watch.
You got a double watch. So grab the popcorn and watch this film. It's very good and just a joy. Maybe watch at 2 times speed in the first 45 minutes.
Yeah. And then, after you grab the popcorn and you watch the movie, grab a little bit more popcorn, listen to this podcast, and then you got too much popcorn.
That's it. Because you forgot you made the popcorn the first time. And then you grab more popcorn to listen to the podcast.
Yeah. You put an unpopped popcorn bag in the microwave with the already popped popcorn bag. And
you burn the first batch.
It's a mess in there.
Really big mess.
Someone's mad at you. Oh no. Oh, just escape to a better world of a podcast.
Absolutely too much popcorn. That has been us via the podcast, Too Much Popcorn. Thank you so much for listening. If you have the time to write a 5-star review, we'd love to see that on our new burgeoning podcatcher, Apple Podcasts, any of those kind of things. If you don't want to rate us, just write a comment on YouTube that says watch or don't watch. And that'll tell people immediately. They'll go to the YouTube, they'll see the comment, it says watch, and they'll say, watch the movie or watch the episode of the podcast. And we'll tell you right now, it means listen to the episode of the podcast. It should say listen, I guess. Right? Hey, if you do a comment on YouTube, say listen. I'm changing the script. But yeah, that's going to do it for this week. We'll see you again for more movie reviews for the next episode. What movie will it be? You'll never know until it comes out.
Star Wars The Last Jedi, because it's a good movie.
No, it's probably not going to be that, though.